Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. I am Marisol Negron-Lotito, the Business Development and Project Manager with Cuba Explorations, and I am excited to be your moderator for the next 45 minutes as we discuss our featured destination, Cuba. Before I get going, however, I have a couple of line items to mention. Everyone will have an opportunity to submit questions during the webinar. So if you did not have a chance to send in your questions in advance, here's your opportunity. You can type in your questions in the question dialog box on the right of the screen, and any questions submitted will be answered by our Cuba Exploration staff and sent to you via email within the next 2 business days of the conclusion of the webinar, along with a link of today's webinar. So look for those in your inbox. At the end of our webinar, we will be offering a special discounted code to Cuba. So I highly recommend staying on the line if you wish to take advantage of our promotional offer. I'd like to take a moment to introduce our industry expert and speaker this afternoon, Renee Radaba, President and Managing Director of Cuba Explorations and Paragon Events, who has over 30 years of experience in the event planning and marketing industry. As travel restrictions relax between the U.S. and Cuba, more and more industry professionals are looking into the opportunities this Caribbean island offers for events and meetings. But planning trips to Cuba still requires an understanding of the regulations in place. Travel is allowed for 12 approved licenses, and each category comes with a very specific requirement. In this session, Renee will share her experience planning group travel to this hot new destination, from ensuring activities are within guidelines to dealing with challenges planning in more rural areas. Renee will share lessons learned and what you need to consider before you go. Today, we are going to be focusing on the P2P license. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Renee to the webinar.
Hello and welcome, everyone. As Marisol mentioned, my name is Renee Radaba, and I'm very excited and appreciative that you're able to join us. I'm here to share my experiences in Cuba, on Cuba travel, OFAC licensing, OFAC being the U.S. government governing body, Office of Foreign Asset Control, some insight into how to navigate managing a meeting in Cuba, and some other general travel information. Our goal from this webinar is to help you make the right decision about planning your travel and next meeting to Cuba. But I'd like to pause for a moment with a quick question. And as Marisol mentioned, there's a dialog box off to the right. I wanted to thank you for such a great response to our webinar and ask if we could start by asking you a quick question, and if you could type in where you're dialing from. I know that several folks from the Pacific time zone as well as Central and Eastern are with us, and I'd love to see, let's see, we've got folks from Raleigh, North Carolina, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania, so thank you all very, very much, really appreciate it. And San Juan, Puerto Rico, look at that. So thank you very much, and it works. So before we start, just a quick about me. As a former hotelier and current owner of a meeting and events firm, Paragon Events, I've gained a great crosshatch of experience that I hope will be helpful to you. In my 25 years of operating Paragon Events, I know that I speak on behalf of most everyone on the phone when I say we could write a book. My experience in the industry has been a test of not what can happen, but when and how we handle it. It afforded me great opportunities and invaluable knowledge in collaboration and creativity, and brought me on this journey to securing this people-to-people license that afforded me to start this venture, Cuba Explorations. So as they say in showbiz, without further ado, let's get started and talk about the mystery of Cuba, untap the new meeting destination.
Thank you, Renee. We're going to start our webinar with tapping into Cuba and why now. So recently, news reports have been very, very confusing. What can we expect to change in the near future?
Well, not very much, actually. Most restrictions that have been lifted are just the starting point. Until such time as Cuba has the infrastructure in place to put these new opportunities in action, most things will stay the same for tourism. Also, just because the U.S. changes the guidelines, this is only the first step. It doesn't mean that Cuba agrees or accepts these changes. So more to come on that topic.
Okay. So what then is required before we will see some definite changes in the near future?
Well, the embargo cannot be lifted without approval by Congress. but the easing of restrictions is the first step. In my opinion, the changes you will see first are the use of credit cards at ATMs, the ability to use your cell phone, and a wider spread internet capability. Regular scheduled flights will increase from U.S. to Cuba, but it still requires both countries to agree on a treaty, which is still some time away. However, American companies are now permitted to export telephones, computers, some internet technology, and to send supplies to private Cuban families and firms. There's been no statement by the Cuban authorities on what restrictions they will impose or lift. Therefore, things will remain the same for now.
Okay. So Cuba being a socialist country, is it safe for American travelers to travel to Cuba?
Cuba, in fact, has a very low crime rate. But as with any foreign country and large city, you should be aware of petty crimes like pickpocketing, but otherwise it's a very safe place. The Cuban people are very welcoming towards Americans, and despite the political differences between the U.S. and Cuba over the years, it is a wonderful place to visit.
So as far as foreign nationals, can foreign nationals, that is non-U.S. citizens, travel on a people-to-people program?
Yes, foreign nationals may travel to Cuba as long as they have complied with their country's visa requirements to enter into the U.S. and Cuba. And when they participate in one of our programs, they must be part of an organized group.
What about U.S. passports and visas? Are they stamped upon arrival?
Yes, and one thing about your passport, it must be good for up to 60 days past the return date. Your visas are issued with your airline ticket by our air partner. This eliminates a great deal of hassle, and your passport is stamped in Cuba, and your adventure begins.
Well, that's great. Now, I want to get into the next section, which deals with Cuban destinations. What cities can one visit while in Cuba?
So Havana is a must, with Santa Clara and Camagüey included because of our air partnerships. Santa Clara is near the home and museum of Che Guevara. There's the Theater Caridad, there's cathedrals, and there's even a boxcar museum. Camagüey includes Plaza del Carmen, which is a beautiful city with art and churches, galleries. They even have a rodeo show out there. But first and foremost, you must visit Havana. The city is the capital. There are cemeteries, and yes, I said cemeteries, which I hope to cover a bit later. There's art, there's music, dance, museums, and of course there is world-class architecture. There are many other cities with their own special interests, but regardless, you will be taking a step back in time when visiting some of these other cities.
Well, one of my favorite cities, Renee, is Trinidad, and simply because it's quaint, a very colorful city, boasting cobblestone streets, colonial architecture, pastel-colored homes, sugar plantations, and unique shops along the many narrow corridors around the city. Piñal de Rios and Viñales is my favorite countryside community, and it's located on the western end of the island where one finds the rich soils for the tobacco and coffee plants. One of the things that makes this city unique is that it's that of the people. The people that reside in these areas, they're just very beautiful and embrace you and welcome you into their homes.
And I think you find that all across Cuba, actually. Every time we go and visit and find a new destination, we find that the people are just very warm and embracing.
That's absolutely right. Actually, speaking about homes, what about accommodations? What type of accommodations can one expect to find in Cuba?
So on your visit to Cuba, you'll be staying at one or more hotels based on the length of your trip and the locations you will visit. You'll enjoy a variety of our partnering hotels. For example, in Havana, to the left is the Hotel Saratoga, a really beautiful boutique-style property. The Malia brand, including the Malia Cohiba and Malia Habana, are some of the larger properties there to accommodate groups. The Iberostar brand, which is the Park Central in Havana. There's the Nacional, which is the sister, or at least the same architect as the Breakers in Palm Beach, and it was built in the late 1920s. And then off the coast to the south, there are all-inclusive hotels to support the group meetings and incentive programs. So you have a number of Malia properties and Iberostar properties, and they're all-inclusive in the beach areas.
Well, you mentioned air travel partner previously. Could you please elaborate a little bit more as to who your preferred air partner is and why?
Yeah, so there are a number of airlines that fly into Cuba through charter services that offer a few flights. But Havana Air is our preferred air partner. They're a licensed travel service provider, or a TSP, and you'll hear that term quite a bit, and a charter air provider servicing flights out of Miami and Key West. Havana Air flies 57 flights a month, and at present provides the most flights to Cuba of any carrier, which adds a greater level of convenience for their travelers. And as part of our partnership, we receive special discount pricing, first choice on seating, and can even charter a whole plane for one of our groups if desired. Another point to cover is outbound flights. We not only fly from Havana Air from Havana, but Santa Clara and Camagüey. So you've got three destinations that you're flying into with the hopes of some additional destinations opening up soon. They fly Boeing 737s that are privately contracted through Swift Air for the private TSP certified Havana Air. And Havana Air is a licensed charter company authorized to provide these direct 45-minute flights, 45-minute legal flights to Cuba. The planes have 12 seats in first class and 130 seats total.
What's included in the flight package?
Well, you have round-trip airfare from Miami to Cuba. There are also 2 flights a week out of Key West to Havana. There's priority check-in at the Miami International Airport with their own gate. There's the Cuban visa that is included with your airline ticket that comes with all your flight documents at the airport upon check-in. And with our great groups, we take care of all that paperwork for you. There's also VIP check-in at Jose Marti International Airport in Havana.
Well, thanks for sharing that. The next question I'd like to propose was submitted to us by one of our participants on the call. What does one do if he or she becomes ill or has an accident while visiting Cuba?
So our programs include medical insurance during your trip to Cuba in Cuba. While it is a third world country with socialized medicine, their services are sought after as being top-notch around the world. And people travel from other countries to receive care in Cuba for just this reason. So should you have an illness or need medical care, your Cuba Explorations escort is there to make sure you receive the medical attention you need, including visits from doctors coming right to your hotel room. So travel to Cuba includes the in-country medical insurance.
So I'd like to move on to the next section now that we're talking about that. What can one expect traveling to Cuba and while in Cuba?
Well, any and all programs that we plan include English-speaking and Spanish-speaking American and Cuban guides. And many hoteliers and some key staff do speak English. Another big question that came up was ADA accommodation. We can make special arrangements at the airport, but you will need to let your travelers know that some hotels and buildings in Cuba are older buildings that may or may not have elevators, handicap ramps, and access areas. Cobblestone streets are in disrepair and not handicap accessible. And then you also have restaurants that are 2 and 3 floors up that don't have elevators. There's also to keep in mind the water. Bottled water is provided for drinking, but tap water is acceptable for bathing, brushing teeth, and ice for your beverages.
Well, thank you, Renee. This next question is a very hot topic, especially among Americans who love to stay in touch. Tell us a little bit about cell phone usage and Wi-Fi availability in Cuba.
Well, let's see. Telephone services and internet access are not included in the program. There is no cell phone coverage from American mobile device providers due to the U.S. embargo. International phone calls may be placed at the hotel either directly from your guest room or in the lobby for a fee. We suggest downloading one of the following free apps that will help facilitate communications when Wi-Fi connections are available. That would be WhatsApp, Skype, or Viber.
Well, one of the other hot topics as well is currency. What type of currency can be used in Cuba and the exchange rate, as well as what type of money can be exchanged in Cuba?
Well, it is a dual currency system in Cuba. The Cuban convertible peso, also referred to as the CUC, will be the currency you would use in Cuba. The Cuban peso, also called the CUP, is only used by the Cubans and has a different value. Money can be exchanged in airports, hotels, and banks quite easily. We recommend exchanging your money at your hotel or at the airport, as it's often the most convenient place to make currency exchanges. Make sure you have your passport on hand. Due to the dual currency system used in Cuba, it's strongly advised to not accept offers to exchange currency from anyone who approaches you on the street. Please also note that you cannot exchange CUCs outside of Cuba. So make sure you exchange your currency to CUCs upon arrival in Cuba and convert them back to U.S. dollars before you leave Cuba. And that's very easy and can be done in the airport even after you get through security. There is a conversion of 13%, so every $100 is converted to 87 CUC. And for more information, we will be providing you the exchange, a www site to review that.
Well, thank you for that. Now, Americans are very accustomed to traveling about and using their credit cards for purchasing different items. What about the use of credit cards in Cuba, and are they accepted?
So as of January 16th, 2015, credit cards issued by the U.S. banks have been said to be able to be used in Cuba. But you should consult with your financial institution to ensure that they will accept a charge from a Cuban vendor. We recommend that you do not rely on paying with a credit card, as most venues outside the hotel do not accept credit cards at all, and many hotels still don't accept credit cards. So again, while the U.S. government has said it's okay to use credit cards in Cuba, Cuba hasn't said yes, or banking hasn't loosened up enough. Foreign banks are accepted in hotels, but remember, in Cuba, cash is king.
Well, it certainly is. Now that we're talking about cash, how much money should a traveler bring to Cuba?
So we advise that you travel with no less than $500, plus money for souvenirs. Please also note that all hotel incidentals, such as international calls made from your room, need to be paid in cash at the end of your stay, since you're unable to put down a credit card issued from a U.S. bank. One change recently is, as of April 1, your departure tax must be paid in advance with your program fees, where previously you paid those at the bank, at the airport upon departure.
So many today, Renee, as you know, many of the participants on our call today are meeting planners. What can Cuba offer to these meeting planners?
So we've got a lot of great information with reference to that. But before I answer that, I was wondering if I could ask a quick question that may help us address some elements in the conversation. What industry does everyone represent? Is there a lot of technology, finance? Is incentive more your interest right now? Or are there other areas that you're interested in? So as I thought, we have a lot of incentive interest right here, which I think is a perfect fit and sort of segues into some of the information that we're going to provide. So there are hotels that can accommodate upward of 1,000 attendees, but there's a caveat there. For those that are interested in bringing a group to Cuba, there are ideal-sized groups to be accommodated for meetings. So Cuba is ready from a size perspective in their hotels to accommodate larger groups, but right now 40 to 60 rooms or 80 to 100, 120 guests would be considered a large meeting. 20 to 30 rooms, 40 to 60 guests would be considered a mid-sized meeting and considered a perfect group size for the average hotel there. 15 to 25 rooms, 30 to 50 guests would be considered a small meeting, a real sweet spot for some of those boutique hotels and many of the paladars. And we will discuss and maybe ask how many of you know what a paladar is in a bit. It's just good to know that generally speaking, and we're going to show you a few graphs, there are ballrooms that can fit 500 to 1,000 guests, and it's more related to the current infrastructure that limits the size groups that you can accommodate. So on to the next slide. The Melia Cohiba and Melia Habana are two of the largest properties. So you have some photos of the meeting rooms there, and you'll see a chart where it shows that they can accommodate a cocktail party of upwards of 1,000 people, banquets for 500. The meeting space is very robust at this particular property. And one other thing I might want to add for you when looking at the hotels, some of them have concierge levels, And on those concierge levels, particularly at like properties like the Molia Cohiba, you can secure complimentary Wi-Fi as part of the programming. So that's a big plus. The next meeting space that we did identify for you is the Hotel Nacional. So the Hotel Nacional, if you remember, is the luxurious, older, built in the late 1920s historic property. It's a little smaller in meeting specs, but can do a dinner for 100, 150, and has a couple of other meeting rooms that would accommodate smaller groups. Let's see, more on that. I think as we talk about the meeting space, you'll recognize that we can incorporate the people-to-people program with meeting programs. So meetings are usually a half to two-thirds of the day, with the cultural exchange portion of the program in the afternoons or early evenings. Cultural programs can include performances with interaction with entertainers, art shows with interaction with artists, museum visits or gallery tours, and visits to the university with interactions with professors. And you really, really want this part of the program. This part of the program is really why you come to Cuba. I must emphasize that you can sit in a classroom anywhere, but you can't have the full Cuba experience without engaging with the people. This is what makes the people-to-people portion of the program so significant.
Well, thank you, Renee. Can one expect the same hotel concessions they're accustomed to receiving in the U.S. in Cuba?
So no, not really. The traditional U.S. concessions are not generally accepted as a usual business practice. Some industry standard concessions you cannot expect when planning a program in Cuba are the 1 per 20, 10% commission on the hotel rooms, suite upgrades at the rate, comp planner rooms, and complimentary Wi-Fi. What you can expect are industry standard commissions on the land portion of the programs, which can be very lucrative. You can also, however, expect that through our programs, you receive one complete land program complimentary per 20 attendees. So this allows for you to accommodate your planner comps. So there's also the question about audiovisual. Audiovisual equipment is limited in quality and technology, but most basic equipment is available, including screens, projectors, and sound. Food and beverage. Most hotels include the complimentary breakfast with your room rate, and breakfast buffets are very generous and the service is gracious. And I think that one of probably the most pleasant surprises of all when traveling to Cuba is the quality of the food and the variety that's out there.
My favorite part. Okay, Renee, well, meeting organizers are usually concerned with the movement of their meeting participants. What type of ground transportation is available in Cuba?
So there are actually very good quality group tour buses and motor coaches, mostly from China. Public transportation is limited, however, and not really available with ease or recommended. It's really crowded by the locals because of the limited number of vehicles that are owned. Classic cars and government taxis are available for travelers and tourists for hire, and the classic cars are a highlight of any trip to Cuba.
Yeah, everybody loves the classic cars. Our next section will focus on what to look for. So what should meeting planners look for when seeking a service provider in Cuba?
So I think personalized service, I can't stress enough the importance of someone that understands the meetings business, but more importantly, understands Cuba. You want personalized service, not a canned program, because as we know, meetings are not one size fits all. Part of every compliance to P2P is that a program have a professional American guide.
Okay. So can you elaborate a little bit more about Cuba Exploration's partnership with Havana Air? You mentioned them earlier. Can you expound upon that?
Yeah. So basically, as we touched on earlier, we block our seats at the time of your request. Your price doesn't fluctuate, and we control the confirmations and the visa due to the strong alliance with the airline. Some additional benefits include the VIP service at the airport. So part of the standard programming includes the VIP service upon arrival, so you're escorted through a specific Havana Air customs line, and under certain circumstances and under normal circumstances, and with most American travelers, they're greeted and shown to one of several preferred check-in lines. There's VIP charter seats. So there are several airline charter companies. However, my expertise is with the aforementioned airline and private charters. So in programming, we can accommodate VIP seating, as I said, for 12 first class, which is really very affordable through this partnership. And then we have the ability to do seating blocks. So for our event planners in attendance here, this may be of particular interest to you. While most airlines charge extra for specific seats or treat seating as a first come, first serve, we have the ability to block our groups together based on the seating blocks, and we do block our seats in advance upon the time of booking the program.
Now, leading into another important piece is the star rating. What level of hotels are available in Cuba?
So I think before I touch on the star ratings of ours, I want to mention that there are many, many hotels in Cuba, and some that would fall into a category of a 1 and 2. So there are properties that have been there since 50s and look like they never changed. So keep that in mind. So we exclusively work with 4 and 5 star properties. The newly renovated NH brand is there, so many of you are familiar with that, the NH Capri, which was formerly Meyer Lansky's hotel and just went through a 2-year renovation. The Hotel Saratoga, which is the location that Beyonce and Jay-Z stayed. Beautiful boutique property in downtown. The National, which we mentioned, was built in 1929 and mimics the Breakers in Palm Beach, and it has played host to everyone from mob bosses to Tarzan to presidents and a multitude of celebrities, and it still welcomes celebrities to this day and sits out at the Malecon and looks over the water. You have the Malia properties, the Malia brand, of which there are 8 or 9 properties throughout Cuba, and then the Iberostar brand, which has the Park Central in Havana and several other brands across Cuba. The Telegraph in downtown Havana, great for educational programs, schools, and organizations. But for that incentive-style program, the Saratoga, Maleo, and Iberostars are our go-to hotels. I should also mention that these hotels have very nice amenities and excellent housekeeping services.
Well, one of the things that people are in meetings like to provide for people is attractions and activities that are beyond the meeting. So what other types of activities one can expect to participate in besides meetings in Cuba?
So besides your meeting time, you are required to participate in at least one people-to-people exchange a day. But please don't let that word require cause you angst. Your guests will love this. Dancing and performances, interact with world-class artist projects spawned from social responsibilities like Trash to Art and the Barber's Alley. And I'd like to pause a moment, and this is where social responsibility comes in. We try to inject it into our events as often as possible. We hunt and search for the right program that will fulfill these needs, but in Cuba, the people are living it every day. They create programs that are making a difference in their community every day. And these are part of the people-to-people programs you will experience. There will not be enough time in the day to see everything you want to see. Rum tastings in the historic rum factory, cigar rolling at real cigar factories, Park Avenue cemeteries. And this is where I'm going to pause a moment because I have to talk about the cemeteries. So the cemeteries there are set up like a Park Avenue street. And there are tombs that were built by Lalique. There's the tallest honoring fallen firemen. It is a highlight of every trip. And there are classic music performances throughout with jazz clubs everywhere. And there's history performed in dance and so much more. There's the Cuba programs vary in numbers of days and activities, but educational exchanges are 5-day, 4 nights, 8-day, 7 nights, 4-day, 3 nights. You can visit Hemingway's home, rum factories, organic farms, the Buena Vista Social Club, synagogues, Holocaust museums, the first barbershop. You can ride in classic cars, you can see artwork, and you can really visit unchanged architecture. All the meals, transportation, airfare, guides, hotel accommodations, your airport ground services, your meet and greet are all included in your programming.
Well, Renee, one of the things, if I may interject, you made a comment. Oftentimes people travel to Cuba and they think about bus transportation, people touring the area. It's a planned program. But really, when you go out there, it's not what they anticipated. And many, many, many travelers have given us some feedback about, I thought it was going to be one way, and it turned out to be completely different, and they can't wait to get back there. So it's an awesome experience. So with all that, can programs be customized to enhance the client's experience?
You absolutely can, and we recommend it. There are standard activities that must be included, as mentioned above, that make it a people-to-people program. But at the end of the day, we want your people to have the full immersion and a very special experience. So there's a whole variety of activities and people-to-people exchanges that you can engage in. We have several dates on our website that you can look at and kind of get a feel for what the programming is like. But of course, we can request preferred dates. But one of the things as planners, we need to be patient in the time frame for the response. It can take a couple of weeks to hear back and get details and approval of the program that you're requesting. And you have to lock things down early and be prepared to pay in full 45 to 60 days in advance, with the exception of those extra on-site expenses, which are settled at the time of departure.
Well, we're approaching the last segment of our webinar, and we're going to focus a little bit on Cuba and why now. So I want to thank you, Renee, for providing such a very informative webinar information up to this point. But before we wrap up this session, one of the most pertinent questions planners want to know is, why Cuba and why now?
And before I answer that, I'm going to ask a quick question and have everybody tell me, does anybody know what a palidar is? Are you familiar with the term palidar? If you could type in your response. All right, good. So palidar is a term that Cuba came up with to describe restaurants in people's homes. So basically, at a time 15, 18 years ago, Cubans did not own their own businesses, but they were allowed to open a table or two in their homes and host people for meals. So you could join someone in their home, and then you would pay them based on the meal that they would provide. Well, that sort of grew grassroots, and palidars and homes became restaurants. And now palidars are fabulous, privately owned restaurants that allow just a really wonderful food and beverage experience. So you have government-run restaurants, and then you have private palidars. So previously, I don't know if you noticed in a slide, there was a picture that showed what looked like to be laundry hanging. Well, there's a restaurant called La Garita that, if you get a chance, look it up. It was used in a movie called Strawberry and Chocolate. And I'm going to segue for a moment because Strawberry and Chocolate was a movie that was featuring the tie-in to ice cream. And you're going to have to go and look and read about it to get more experience from what Strawberry and Chocolate represented. But La Garita is this fabulous, once a home to a single family. It now has a portion of it that houses over 45 families, and it's a 4-story restaurant that is a must-see in Cuba. So palidars can be anything from 2 or 3 tables to now you're finding them with 100, 150 seats with very, very nice high-end cuisine. So now I'll go back to your question, Marisol. Cuba, why now? It's just a hot destination. And isn't one of the toughest things we've got going for us as planners exciting our clients, finding new and innovative places to take them, taking the lead ahead of the competition, and really beating the mentality of the same old thing? There's no better time to propose that your clients take that short 45-minute plane ride out of Miami. Our programs offer land portion commissions and a 1 per 20 comp on land. So when you start thinking about building a program, while you're not going to visit the traditional 10% commission on hotels, there are opportunities. And while Cuba requires strict licensing, the predetermined people-to-people programming that we've designed fulfills all of those licensing requirements while creating that personalized experience.
Wow. Well, thank you, Renee, so much for taking the time. I think we have a few minutes to answer a couple questions that were submitted during our webinar. You want to take a couple questions? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
sure. Let's do that.
Okay. One of the questions is, what does Cuba Explorations do?
So I touched on it earlier. There are licensed people-to-people providers. The OFAC, the U.S. government, has approved us for the ability to negotiate with Cuba and develop these programs. So we're developing programs that we can build your programming into to make sure that you follow all the appropriate OFAC guidelines when providing a program to your clients.
Okay, well, thank you. There's another question that was submitted, and that was, what can people bring back from Cuba?
Another great question. So recently, you probably heard in the news that they're allowing items that were previously on the embargo list, cigar and rum. Everybody wanted to bring it home. Nobody could, or they could and
Didn't declare.
didn't declare it. There you go. But you can carry $100 worth of rum and cigars back with you. Also, art can be brought back. Art has a cap, but there are ways that you can bring art back for your guests. So if you want to do an art tour, we can tie in with a gallery locally, and the art can be shipped in and delivered to folks, and payment can be processed in the U.S. So there's a lot of opportunity to bring a lot of different things, and there are markets everywhere, craft breweries popping up, street vendors that sell historic books. So there's a lot of interesting items to bring back.
And what about other, you mentioned some P2P programs, people-to-people programs. What other types of programs, other than what you've mentioned already, can people expect to engage in?
So we've got one that we recently found, and a client is going on in a community outside of Havana. Students gathered with an artist and started cleaning up their beaches because their beaches were just getting covered with paper and trash. And the interesting thing is that these kids started designing art with the trash that they were picking up, and it's now become a whole movement. And you can actually buy paper that these kids make, and these great little books that are all painted and done with screen work for creating the paper. So really fascinating things that are occurring.
That's great. Well, I think we need to be wrapping this up, Renee. So do you have any other closing thoughts or additional comments you'd like to add before we close out the session?
Let's see. I think that we've got somebody that asked about spas. Spas are not actually part of the programming there, although you can get spa services. Do you have to have a guide with you the entire trip? That is a question. That is part of the licensing. You do have to have a guide with you the entire trip, but that guide can support you and your efforts. So their job is to support you as the planner. So if you're managing a program, they're going to be the people that are going to be supporting the advanced efforts that you need.
Another question just came in about other outbound cities to Havana with Havana Air.
So the outbound cities, we're going to depart from Key West twice a week and Miami 7 days a week. And you're flying into Santa Clara. So you could have a program that you arrived in Havana and then visited cities throughout the trip, ended up out in the Santa Clara area, and then flew back out of Santa Clara back home. One other thing that I'll share with you while we're talking about Santa Clara. So as you know, part of the guidelines, and you probably don't know, so I'm going to share this with you. Part of the guidelines of selling, you don't sell Cuba as a resort or a beach, but when you go out to these outlying areas like Santa Clara, the only thing that's out there that fits into our program is a resort or a beach. So guess what? When you're doing programming out in those areas, you're staying at all-inclusive resorts and at the beach. So it's all in the way you build the programming that gives you an opportunity to really have a full experience out there. Can you get first-class seats for your guests? There are 12 first-class seats on the plane, and actually, the interesting thing about that is that first-class seats are very affordable. very affordable, a couple $100 more per package. So let's see if we've got one more question. What to expect when you return to the U.S. Customs. So when you arrive in the U.S., you return, you transport from the terminal up to the customs area, and basically the questions are typically, why did you go to Cuba? Your answer is, I went on a people-to-people program. We provide you in your documentation the letter that says you're attending a people-to-people program that's approved. So all that's part of your flight package. And we've never had a guest with any problem coming back through customs, and it's really a fairly easy process.
So the best time of the year to visit, and what is the rainy season?
So basically, they're the exact same season as South Florida. So they basically support the same season. Your big travel times are January, February, March, April. May is your shoulder. Summer is hot, but a very busy time. It's a little humid. It's going to fit the same rainy season as us. So you're going to see April and May, kind of rainy. You're going to see seasonal rain throughout the latter part of the summer, August, September. And you're going to basically see October, November, again, being part of that shoulder season, and it's a very big destination for the holidays.
Very well. I think we are just about at the tail end of our.
Yeah, I think so.
So again, I'd like to thank you for coming on board and answering all those questions. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think I just want to thank everyone for joining us, and I hope you found the webinar engaging and informative, enlightening, and perhaps got your juices flowing for how you could build your revenue and brand through meetings and incentives in Cuba.
And now, for those of you who participated, there is a special offer that will be sent to them via email, no?
Yeah, it'll go out as part of the information. We do have, there's a program called the Art Biannual that every 2 years there's a huge art event throughout Havana. And we have 2 programs going down there. So for anyone that was on the webinar, if you have an interest in attending that, you're going to get a code, a discount code, and you're going to get complimentary airfare if you book one of these 2 May dates. So I think that
by April 16th.
By April 16th, yeah.
All right, very good. Well, the PowerPoint presentation, the questions and answers, and recording of the webinar will be sent to you within the next 2 business days. If we can be of any assistance or answer any questions, please don't hesitate to call us at 561-921-2425, or send us an email at info@cubaexplorations.com. Thank you again for participating, and we'll talk to you very soon.